A single millionaire mother saw a 12-year-old black girl rummaging through trash on Christmas Eve, and when she discovered the truth behind the scene, she was completely stunned. The temperature had plummeted to -5 degrees that December night, but that didn't stop Victoria Chen from getting out of his Mercedes to investigate what appeared to be a child rummaging through the dumpsters in the shopping mall parking lot. At 34, the businesswoman had built an app empire that had made her one of the richest women in the city, but nothing had prepared her for that sight. The girl was methodically sorting through food scraps in dirty packaging, his small fingers trembling not only from the cold but from obvious hunger. Victoria approached slowly, trying not to scare the child. "Hi, sweetie," she said softly. "Are you okay?" The girl looked up, her eyes large and intelligent, but filled with a distrust that should not exist in someone so young. "I'm not begging," she replied with impressive dignity. "I'm just looking for something I lost." Victoria felt her heart tighten. "What's his name?" "Amara Johnson." "Amara, where are his parents?" The question made the girl's shoulders stiffen. "My mom works 3 jobs and can't pick me up today. I'm waiting." Something in the way Amara looked away made Victoria realize there was much more to this story. "Where does she work?" "At McDonald's in the morning, cleaning at the hospital in the afternoon, and," Amara hesitated, "and as a waitress at a restaurant at night." Victoria did the math quickly. 3 jobs, Christmas Eve, and still not enough money for this child to not have to look for food in the trash. Something was very wrong. "What kind of something did you lose?" Victoria asked, already suspecting the answer. Amara looked down, ashamed. "My school lunch card. If I don't find it, I won't have anything to eat until Monday." Anger began to boil in Victoria's chest. A lost food stamp card on Christmas Eve meant that this child would go 3 days without a decent meal. "When did you lose the card?" "This morning at school." "Some boys." They took her backpack and threw it on the ground. Everything fell out. Amara wiped her nose with the sleeve of her coat, which was too thin for the cold. "The principal said she can't give me another card until Monday because the system is down for the holidays." Victoria felt something familiar ignite inside her, the same controlled fury that had helped him destroy unfair competitors over the years. But this time it was different. More personal. "Amara, can you tell me the name of her school?" "Riverside Elementary School." "Why?" Victoria knew that school well. She had offered a substantial donation to improve the student meal program the previous year, but the principal, Rebecca Walsh, had refused in an almost insulting manner, claiming that they didn't need charity from nouveau riche businesswomen. "And what's the principal's name?" Victoria asked, even though she already knew the answer. "Mrs. Walsh." She doesn't like me very much." Victoria looked at Amara's angelic face and felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Why do you think that?" "She always finds excuses to send me home when my mother is late to pick me up. She says children like me bring undesirable elements to the school." Amara repeated the words as if she had memorized them, not fully understanding the venom behind them. Victoria clenched her fists inside her coat pockets. Rebecca Walsh. The same woman who had looked at his donation check as if it were dirty money was now letting a 12-year-old child rummage through trash on Christmas Eve because of a lost card that could have been replaced with a simple phone call. But what Victoria didn't know yet was that Amara's story hid a much more sinister truth about the city's school system, a web of corruption and prejudice that went far beyond a petty principal. And when she discovered the full extent of that injustice, the businesswoman who had already destroyed corporate empires would show what happens when someone messes with the wrong child. If you're wondering how far a millionaire mother will go to protect an innocent child, be sure to subscribe to the channel to find out how Victoria turned her outrage into the most intelligent revenge that Rebecca Walsh could ever imagine. Victoria didn't hesitate for a second. "Amara, you're coming with me. We're going to fix this the right way." 20 minutes later, the two were sitting in Victoria's apartment kitchen, Amara devouring a plate of homemade lasagna with the desperate hunger of someone who hadn't had a proper meal in days. Victoria watched silently, trying to process how such an absurd situation had become reality. "Amara, tell me something. How many times has Mrs. Walsh sent you home because of her mother?" The girl stopped eating for a moment. "About 6 times this semester. She always calls social services too, saying that my mother neglects me." Amara made quotation marks with her small fingers. "But my mother works hard to support me." She's just late sometimes because the bus breaks down or because the supervisor at the hospital makes her stay late. Victoria felt the familiar anger flaring up again. She knew that feeling well, the same one she had felt at 17, when she was the only Asian student in her college programming class and had to hear daily that she was taking a real American spot. The difference was that now she had the resources to fight back. What about the other students? Does Mrs. Walsh treat everyone like this? No, Amara shook her head. Like, there's Madison whose parents are always late because they're at the spa, and Mrs. Walsh just laughs and offers her hot chocolate while she waits. But when it's her voice trailed off. Victoria grabbed his laptop and started searching. Rebecca Walsh, 48 years old, principal of Riverside Elementary School for 12 years. Degree in education from the local university, salary of $90,000 a year. But it was when she dug deeper that Victoria found something interesting. 3 discrimination lawsuits filed in the last 5 years, all involving ethnic minority families. Amara, do you know any other children who have been through similar situations at school? Do you know Marcus Thompson? He was doing really well in math. Then Mrs. Walsh said he was cheating because boys like him aren't good with numbers. She transferred him to the weakest class. Amara played with her fork. And little Sofia Rodriguez was suspended because she was speaking Spanish with her sister at recess. Mrs. Walsh said that in America, we only speak English. Victoria clenched her fists. It wasn't just prejudice, it was a systematic pattern of discrimination that was destroying the future of innocent children. And worse, Rebecca Walsh was being paid with public money to perpetuate this injustice. Just then, Victoria's phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello. Mrs. Chun. The voice was cold and authoritative. This is Rebecca Walsh, principal of Riverside Elementary School. I understand you have one of our students with you. I need you to bring her back immediately. Victoria exchanged glances with Amara, who had turned pale upon hearing the familiar voice. Oh, Mr. Walsh. How did he get my number? I have my sources. The girl needs to come back now, or I will be forced to involve the authorities. Single mothers like you should understand that there are protocols to be followed. The comment about single mothers was like a slap in the face. Victoria took a deep breath, controlling her voice. Interesting. And what protocols are these that allow a 12-year-old child to search for food in the trash on Christmas Eve? There was a pause. I don't know what you're talking about. Amara Johnson is a troubled child from a dysfunctional family. If you're making up stories to get attention, it only confirms my assessment of her. Her assessment. Victoria felt something cold form in her stomach. And what assessment would that be? Look, Ms. Chun, I know who she is. She's a nouveau riche who showed up wanting to buy prestige by donating money to schools. But education isn't about money, it's about values, tradition, maintaining certain standards. The arrogance in Rebecca's voice was unmistakable. Children like Amara just don't fit in here. It's better for everyone if she finds a school more suited to his socio-economic profile. Victoria looked at Amara, who was listening to every word with tears in her eyes. The girl had already internalized that she wasn't good enough to attend that school. I understand her position perfectly, Mrs. Walsh, Victoria said with a calmness she didn't feel. And you can rest assured that Amara will be at school on Monday. Punctually. Great. And I hope this clears up any misunderstanding. Some people need to learn his place in society. When Victoria hung up the phone, her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a controlled anger she had learned to channel over the years. Rebecca Walsh had just made the biggest mistake of her life, completely underestimating a woman who had built a $50 million empire in 5 years, starting from nothing. Amara, Victoria said softly, do you want to go to a better school? The girl's eyes lit up for a second, but then dimmed again. Good schools cost a lot of money. And my mom already works too hard. Victoria smiled for the first time that night. Honey, let me worry about that. But first, let's teach some people a lesson about what happens when they mess with the wrong kid. While Amara finished dinner, Victoria opened his laptop again. This time, he wasn't just researching, he was putting together a dossier. Emails, archived files, school policies, public education budgets. Each click revealed another piece of the puzzle that was beginning to form. At 2 in the morning, Victoria had discovered something that made his blood run cold. Rebecca Walsh wasn't just discriminating against students. She was embezzling federal funds intended to feed needy children, falsifying reports on the number of students receiving food stamps, and pocketing the difference. The lost cards like Amara's were actually cancelled on purpose to reduce costs and increase the principal's personal profit. But what Rebecca Walsh didn't know was that Victoria Chun hadn't become a millionaire at 34 by accident. The daughter of immigrants who arrived in the United States with only $200 in their pockets, she had learned early on that the world gives nothing for free to people like her. Every success in his life had been achieved by standing up to people who thought they knew her place in society. The difference was that now she had the resources, influence, and connections that would make Rebecca Walsh deeply regret every arrogant word that he had uttered on that phone call. What that prejudiced principal was about to find out was that some battles are lost before they even begin, especially when you underestimate a mother determined to protect an innocent child, and that mother happens to control technologies that can comb through every public document, every suspicious bank transaction, and every lie carefully constructed over 12 years of corruption disguised as education. The next morning, Victoria woke up at 5:30 a.m. with a plan already formed in her head. While Amara was still asleep in the guest room, she called her personal assistant. "Linda, I need you to cancel all my appointments for this week. And can you get me Marcus Williams' phone number?" Marcus Williams was an investigative journalist at the Washington Herald who had exposed corruption scandals in 3 state governments. More importantly, he was his expert at exposing schemes involving embezzled public funds. "Victoria." Marcus's hoarse voice answered after 3 rings. "You only call his name when you want to bury someone alive. Who's it this time?" A school principal who's stealing food from poor children. Victoria got straight to the point. "And who happens to have a serious problem with racial prejudice?" There was a pause. "I'm listening." Rebecca Walsh, Riverside Elementary School. 12 years of embezzling federal food funds, falsifying reports, and using it to fund his lifestyle while children like Amara go hungry. "Do you have proof?" Victoria smiled. "Marcus, when don't I have proof?" At 9 in the morning, Victoria was parked in front of the McDonald's where Jennifer Johnson, Amara's mother, worked. The 32-year-old woman was leaving her morning shift, her eyes red from exhaustion, her uniform folded over her arm. "Mrs. Johnson?" Victoria approached her. "I'm Victoria Chun. I met his daughter last night." Jennifer's face contorted in panic. "Where is she? Is she okay? I rushed out of work when I couldn't find her at home, but—" "She's with me, she's safe and fed," Victoria reassured her quickly. "But we need to talk about her school." For 20 minutes in the parking lot, Jennifer poured out 3 years of accumulated humiliation. The constant calls from social services investigating neglect. The times Amara came home crying because the principal had told her that children like her didn't belong at that school. The food stamps that were lost or cancelled due to a system error that were never replaced in time. "I work 60 hours a week," Jennifer said, tears finally falling. "I wake up at 4 in the morning. I go to bed after midnight. But no matter how hard I work myself to death, it's never enough for him." Victoria felt the familiar anger burning in his chest. "Jennifer, would you trust him to handle this the right way?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, some people need to learn that messing with the wrong kid can cost them a lot more than they think." Meanwhile, at Riverside Elementary School, Rebecca Walsh was having a particularly productive morning feeding his inflated ego. She had just fired the school's only black teacher, tight budget, she explained to the board, and was reviewing the list of students who would be invited to seek more suitable institutions for the next semester. Amara Johnson's name was at the top of the list. Ms. Walsh. Her secretary, Mrs. Peterson, appeared at the door. "You have a call. Someone from the state education department." Rebecca answered in her most professional tone. "Rebecca Walsh speaking." "Ms. Walsh, this is David Chun from the Educational Auditing Department. We have received some complaints about irregularities in her school's food program. We will be conducting an inspection on Monday." The surname Chun set off alarm bells in Rebecca's head. "Chun? Are you related to that Asian woman who was harassing one of our students yesterday?" "I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. We're talking about a federal audit, Ms. Walsh. I suggest you have all your documentation in order." When Rebecca hung up, her hands were shaking slightly. It was too much of a coincidence. She quickly dialed his supervisor at the school district. Tom, I need a favor. I want Amara Johnson's complete file transferred to Jefferson Municipal School today. And I need this to be processed as a disciplinary emergency. Rebecca, Jefferson is a school of last resort. What the hell did she do? Let's just say she brought undesirable outside influences into our institution. Elements that could compromise our educational environment. What Rebecca Walsh didn't know was that Marcus Williams had already spent the entire morning at the Public Records Office, photographing 12 years of the school's financial reports. And that Victoria Chun had data analysis tools that could cross-reference bank information, government reports, and personal expenses with surgical precision. At 2 in the afternoon, Victoria received a call that made her smile for the first time in 24 hours. Victoria, you won't believe what I found, Marcus said, her voice thick with excitement. Not only has Rebecca Walsh embezzled more than $250,000 in food funds over the past 5 years, she's used the money to finance home renovations, trips to Europe, and even a new car for her son. And there's more. Yes, there is. It's her. She forged parent signatures on consent forms, manipulated demographic data to reduce the official number of needy children at the school, and this is the best part, she created a secret list of undesirable families who should be discouraged from remaining at the institution. Victoria clenched her fists. Did you get any documents? Emails, spreadsheets, even recordings of meetings. Apparently, our dear principal isn't very careful with her computer passwords. As Victoria processed this information, his phone rang again. It was Jennifer Johnson, his voice heavy with despair. Victoria, he transferred Amara. A paper arrived here saying that she was removed from Riverside for disciplinary reasons and that she has to report to Jefferson on Monday. Victoria knew the reputation of Jefferson Municipal School. It was where children considered problematic were sent, an educational dumping ground where dreams died and futures were discarded like trash. Jennifer, did he sign anything authorizing this transfer? No. He didn't even consult her. He just sent the paper saying the decision had already been made. Victoria felt something cold form in her stomach. Rebecca Walsh had just escalated the war to a whole new level. It was no longer just about a lost lunch card. Now it was a direct attack on the future of an innocent child. Jennifer, don't worry. Amara won't set foot in Jefferson. But how? He's the school administration, he has the authority to. Leave it to me, Victoria interrupted, her voice laden with a determination that made people far more powerful than Rebecca Walsh wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat. That night, while Amara drew quietly at the kitchen table, Victoria opened his laptop for the last time before putting his plan into motion. It contained compromising emails, evidence of corruption, forged documents, recordings of racist conversations, and a network of investigative journalists ready to turn Rebecca Walsh's life into a public hell. But what Rebecca Walsh was about to discover was that Victoria Chun hadn't become a millionaire by accident. People who underestimated a woman like her, immigrants, self-made, determined, always made the same fatal mistake. They thought that money and social status were enough to protect her from the consequences of his actions. What that prejudiced principal couldn't imagine was that the Asian woman who was harassing a student had just set up the kind of operation that destroyed careers, reputations, and freedoms with the efficiency of a war machine fueled by years of accumulated injustices and a thirst for justice that knew no bounds. On Monday morning, Rebecca Walsh arrived at school with her usual confidence, thinking she had controlled yet another situation. She had spent the weekend planning how to get rid of the Mara problem once and for all and still create legal difficulties for that stuck-up Asian who had dared to challenge her. But when she entered his office, she found 3 men in suits waiting, along with Mrs. Peterson, who was visibly nervous. Ms. Walsh, I am Federal Agent Johnson, from the FBI. This is a subpoena for the immediate surrender of all documents related to the student nutrition program for the past 5 years. Rebecca felt her blood run cold. I don't understand. There must be some mistake. No mistake. We have substantial evidence of embezzlement of federal funds, falsification of official documents, and systematic racial discrimination. The agent placed a stack of papers on the desk. We also have a search and seizure warrant for his computers, personal files, and bank records. As the agents ransacked her office, Rebecca's phone rang. It was Tom, his district supervisor. Rebecca, what the hell is going on? I'm getting calls from journalists asking about corruption at your school. Tom, I can explain. Explain what? The Washington Herald just published a story with his name on the front page. Principal embezzles school lunch funds to finance lavish lifestyle. There are photos of her renovated house, his son's new car, her trips to Europe. Rebecca rushed to her computer, but the agents had already confiscated everything. She grabbed her cell phone with trembling hands and opened the newspaper's website. The headline hit her like a punch in the stomach. Fabricated Hunger: How a Principal Stole Food from Needy Children for 5 years. The article was devastating. Marcus Williams had documented everything: the falsified spreadsheets, the discriminatory emails, the recordings of meetings where Rebecca called certain families undesirable elements. There were even transcripts of phone calls where she instructed employees to discourage minority families from staying at the school. But the worst was yet to come. On the second page, there was a detailed analysis of how Rebecca had embezzled $250,000 over 5 years, using hungry children as an excuse to cut costs while financing his own lifestyle. Mrs. Peterson. Rebecca shouted, but her secretary had disappeared. At 10 in the morning, Rebecca received a call that made his legs buckle. Ms. Walsh, this is Victoria Chen. I believe you need to meet someone. You can't do this to me. I have lawyers. I have influence. You had, Victoria corrected calmly. But let me introduce you to someone special. Jennifer, can you speak to Ms. Walsh? Jennifer Johnson's voice came through the phone, clear and determined. Ms. Walsh, remember me? The negligent mother you loved to humiliate? I want you to know that I just signed a contract as assistant principal at a private school. I'll be working only one job now, with triple the salary I used to earn, and I'll still have time to pick up my daughter every day. Impossible, Rebecca muttered. And there's more, Victoria continued. Amara started at Riverside Academy today, you know, that private school for gifted children? She passed the entrance exam with flying colors. Funny how kids flourish when they don't have someone constantly telling them they don't belong, is it? Rebecca felt the world collapse around her. What do you want from him? I don't want anything. I just wanted her to know that when you mess with the wrong child, sometimes you find out she has guardian angels with resources you never imagined. At noon, Rebecca was being escorted out of the school in handcuffs, while reporters recorded every second. The parents she had humiliated over the years watched from the sidewalk, some with tears of satisfaction in their eyes. Mrs. Peterson, who had kept copies of compromising emails for years waiting for this moment, gave an exclusive interview explaining how the principal lived to terrorize working families while stealing her children's lunch. At the police station, Rebecca tried to call his private lawyer, but discovered that her bank account had been frozen by the federal government. His son's BMW had been seized as evidence. The newly renovated house was under a restraining order. Meanwhile, Victoria was at Riverside Academy, watching Amara get to know her new school. The boy who 3 days earlier had been searching for food in the trash was now running around the playground laughing with new classmates, carrying a backpack full of new school supplies and a food card that would never be lost or canceled due to a system error. Ms. Chun, said the academy director, I wanted to thank you personally for the donation that made Amara's full scholarship possible. It's rare to find someone so committed to educational justice. Victoria smiled, watching Amara help a younger classmate with her books. Let's just say I've learned that the best way to deal with people who abuse power is to show her what real power can do when it's used with purpose. That night, Rebecca Walsh was in a federal cell, facing charges that could result in 15 years in prison. Her career was destroyed, her reputation in tatters, her financial life in ruins. All for underestimating a newly rich Asian woman, who dared to protect a troubled kid from a broken home. What Rebecca discovered too late was that Victoria Chun hadn't built a $50 million empire by accident. People like her, immigrants who overcame prejudice, mothers who fought against unjust systems, businesswomen who turned pain into power, weren't just rich. They were survivors who knew exactly how to use his resources to protect those who needed it most. And when someone like Victoria decides that an injustice needs to be righted, no position, influence, or arrogance can stand up to the power of truth combined with unwavering determination and unlimited resources. But the story wasn't over yet. Because while Rebecca faced the consequences of years of systematic cruelty, something even bigger was unfolding, a transformation that would prove that sometimes true victory isn't just about destroying those who hurt us, but about building something so powerful that it completely rewrites the rules of the game forever. 6 months later, Rebecca Walsh was serving an 8-year sentence in federal prison for corruption and racial discrimination. Her home had been auctioned off to pay compensation to the families she had harmed. His son had to drop out of private college when it was discovered that his tuition was being paid with money stolen from school lunch funds. Meanwhile, Amara Johnson was on stage at Riverside Academy, receiving the award for Best Student of the Semester. Her mother Jennifer, now assistant principal of a school district, watched from the front row with tears of pride in her eyes. "When I grow up, I want to help kids like him find their place in the world," Amara said into the microphone, her clear voice echoing through the crowded auditorium. Victoria watched from the back of the hall, knowing that her revenge had turned into something much bigger. The Chin Johnson Foundation, created with her own funds, had already offered full scholarships to 43 children from working-class families, all rejected by schools that judged students by the color of their skin or their parents' bank accounts. That same week, Riverside Elementary School was closed permanently after a federal investigation revealed a 15-year discrimination scheme. 7 employees were fired, and the school district had to pay $12 million in damages. Jennifer Johnson, who 6 months ago had been working 3 jobs to support her daughter, now ran educational programs that ensured no child would go hungry or be humiliated because of her social background. "You know what I've learned?" Victoria told Marcus Williams during an interview with the Washington Herald. "The best revenge isn't destroying those who hurt you. It's building something so powerful that it turns injustice into fuel for change he could never stop." Rebecca Walsh had tried to break the spirit of a 12-year-old child, completely underestimating the power of a mother determined to protect the innocent. The result? An educational revolution that rewrote the rules of the game forever. Today, when Amara walks through the halls of her new school, she no longer has to search for food in the trash. But she carries with her the memory of that cold December night when a brave woman decided that some injustices were unacceptable. The story of Victoria and Amara proves that sometimes the right person shows up at the right time, transforming our greatest pain into the strength needed to build a future that our oppressors will never be able to destroy. If this story touched his heart and he believes in the power of justice to transform lives, subscribe to the channel for more stories that show how true revenge is building a better world for those who need it most.